This is Sasha George, and I'm from the Subject Press, and I am speaking with Kristen Lamb, a very extraordinary mind and author of top resource books that I've come to be aware of. One of them is The Rise of the Machines, Human Authors in the Digital World, which is very intriguing to me, plus a number one books, wow. We Are Not Alone, The Writer's Guide to the Social Media, and Are You There blog, It's Me, the Writer. And of course, you just released a new book called The Devil's Dance. You've been a busy woman. This is clear. I have been looking at your reviews to some other people who have read this and really praised these books, your personality. And my favorite part of your titlement is you're an author, a blogger, and a social media Jedi. So you already have that power of the Force. So I am here to follow you.
Yeah, I felt bad pilfering Jedi, but I was like, please don't call me a guru, because the word guru just kind of makes me throw up a little in my mouth.
But I think everybody can relate to the Jedi, you know.
Yeah.
Even as a writer, you want to have that empowerment, that thought, that articulation that people feel, wow, this is definitely something I want to follow. So the first thing I really want to touch base in, and I always ask this, but for you, because your books are not necessarily psychological in a novel way, except for recently, but these other ones are really to help people. Have you always been a person who wanted to help others in their struggle and motive?
Yeah, though they tend to call that meddling, but, you know, helper works.
Which kind of derives from your international sales, which you transgressed into an authorship, right?
Yeah. I was terrible at sales.
But it's working now, right?
Yeah. Well, you know, it's different, but, you know, just because a job isn't per se your calling doesn't mean you don't understand what works really well.
Right.
I always had a hard time pushing for the sale. So I think that's why I kind of understand writers when they have a hard time asking for the sale. That's the hardest thing that a lot of, artistic people have a hard time of asking people to sign on the dotted line. And I always had to be guided, let's say, by a conscience of what I felt was right. I don't mean this to sound bad with certain salespeople because, obviously I love salespeople, but, some, that are making the big bucks, they make the big bucks for a reason. They sell things that people don't necessarily need. And I never really could jive with that, even though I probably could have made a lot more money.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I had to really believe in a product and believe in a company and believe that I was the best in order to be able to sell it. And in the job that I was in, we had other competitors that, frankly, were serving the customer better than we could.
Wow. And
my cute and adorableness only went so far. And, it was just really hard for me to be able to go, yeah, we'll take the best care of you, when deep down I knew that we were not equipped to do that.
That makes sense. That does.
And so it became a real battle of, kind of my conscience battling against my quota.
Right? You're like, I need to feed myself, but at the same time I'm looking at you and I don't want to do this to you, right? It's survival and kindness.
Yeah. Nothing against the company I worked for, because they were wonderful and they were very good to me. Unfortunately, in the business that I was in, we were getting some pretty predatory people that were coming on the market, and they were undercutting our product by like 50%.
Wow.
Well, I can't match that. But what they were doing is using cheap Mexican paper, and they were manufacturing over in Mexico. Well, the customer didn't necessarily care that. What I sold corner board. And what corner board is used for very often is to stabilize pallets of very, very heavy material. And you don't want that corner board failing because that's when you can have a stack of TVs fall on someone, right?
Yeah, you don't want that.
But the problem is that you're dealing with, say, a manager who's responsible for buying all this corner board. Well, maybe the corner board will fail. Odds are it won't. Roll the dice. And when I can show my boss, hey, I just cut X amount of dollars because I went with this company, he looks really good. You know, the boss has a harder time looking at that manager going, well, why are we saving money like this company? Makes sense? You know, even though I'm there going, look, I've got pictures of pallets that have failed. This is very dangerous. I know we're more expensive, but this is a product that I would not necessarily trust with my company. That's a lawsuit waiting to happen.
Yes,
and unfortunately, that argument only goes so far with a certain, you know, if it was a 15% price differential, maybe. But when you're talking about like a 50% difference, it just became a harder and harder sell, and it just wasn't a good fit. And, you know, it just wasn't a good fit for a job for me. I became a salesperson because it was a real job and it impressed people and it impressed my family, and I was kind of miserable because I've always been a creative person. But I love sales because sales in its heart is serving people and helping people. You have a problem, I have a solution, let me help you out. So I loved it.
Right. So then you transfer over to an authorship. How long did it take for you to grapple that jump? Because I'm sure you're going over the edge and you're like, well, I want to step away from this adrenaline rush of sales to a career that is very hard to get into. You know, it's like exercising. Actually, you say you're going to do it, but not people do it, you know?
Actually, I didn't have a choice. I kind of got pitched over the edge.
Oh.
I started developing all kinds of health problems, probably partially due to stress, the thousands and thousands of miles of driving. Also, I had undiagnosed food allergies, which were actually very, very severe. And were creating very bad health problems. And eventually I was misdiagnosed with epilepsy.
Oh,
and that effectively ended my sales career, because you can't put somebody who has a diagnosis of epilepsy behind a company car. And my company was very good to me. They gave me a very nice severance. They were there for me. But it was really hard to get a job with this diagnosis of epilepsy, and my health was just continually deteriorating. And eventually I just really got so ill and so weak, I couldn't really leave the house. And I'd always toyed with the idea of writing a novel. I'd started it when I was on the road in sales. You know, I'd come off the road and eat at Cracker Barrel and then go write some. But I didn't take it seriously. So now that my health kind of went downhill and eventually I'm out of money, I have nowhere to live, I've lost everything. It's like, well, crap, why not?
Yeah, you're just like, at that point, okay, time to write.
Yeah, only way out's up, you know. And honestly, I'm very grateful, even though those were really hard years. And I felt like a failure and suffered a lot of depression because it just felt like a complete failure and like I'd let so many people down.
But I think
really,
those challenges
I think, though, that
helped you.
I think so. If I would have stayed in sales, I don't know if I'd ever become a writer, because it was just too easy to have the nice paycheck.
Right.
So for me, for my personal journey, because I was such a people-pleasing idiot, you know, that the second someone went, oh, you don't have a real job, I crumbled. I think I needed that shove. Yeah,
you needed something to really grapple who you truthfully wanted to be, and not a follower, but a leader.
Yeah.
Yes. So which book wrote first? Was it We Are Not Alone, The Writer's Guide to the Social Media? Was that
it's actually kind of a funny story. I have a mentor, great guy. He's a New York Times bestselling author, and he was part of the old paradigm of publishing, multiple New York Times, USA Today bestselling books. And at the time, and I've blogged on this, you know, publishing just wasn't very favorable to the novelist. And I met him at one of my first conferences, and he gives me the advice, don't become a novelist, kid, you'll starve, get into nonfiction. I'm like, oh, great, thank you. Thank you, Yoda, for just...
Love you.
for kicking me in the stomach. Thank you. But I'd already been delving into social media and seeing what it meant for, I could project what that was going to mean for writers. I mean, because that's a lot of what you learn in sales is you learn to start putting data points together and see where things are going. So I dragged him kicking and screaming, literally, onto social media. And our email fights were epic. But he was grateful now because he's doing very, very well. He was one of the first New York Times to break ranks with Legacy and start self-publishing his backlist. And you're like, you're welcome. He's doing really well. But we're having these email fights because I'm like, you're doing it wrong. And so finally he's like, well, then fine. You know, why don't you write a book about it? I'm like, fine, I will.
And you will thank me for it.
So in like a month, I think it was like a month or 6 weeks, I wrote We Are Not Alone, The Writer's Guide to Social Media. And so I sent him this book. And fabulous mentor, but he was like the typical mentor you get in a kung fu movie that like never smiles at you, never uses your name, right? Like never acknowledges like you're a life form higher than, you know, road dirt, you know. But I'm teasing, but not really. And I get a text message, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, we're gonna sell the hell out of this. It's brilliant." And I'm like, "What?" Like, okay, who got your phone?
Right. Now, how did you choose your cover, though? I mean, who did your cover? Did you do your cover, or did you? No,
I didn't do it. He'd broken off and created his own publishing house, and they did the cover, and it was, you know, just clip art, and we were trying to title it, and they wanted to call it something like, what was it? It was like social media marketing for writers. And I was like, no, I will pull the book. No. I said, if you call my book that, you're going to make writers, you're going to turn them into cutters. No. And so my editor at the time was sweet when she talked me off a ledge. She's like, okay, well, what do you want writers to feel when they read the book? I said, well, I want them to know that they need this platform. They need social media, but they don't have to do this alone. They're not alone. And
it is a very quiet
we're
place.
Stronger together. We're stronger together. Well, you have to understand, social media was brand new. I mean, we're talking about Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, all of that was only a year old, 2 years old. And so...
And I thought AOL was impressive.
Yeah, right? And so, you know, she goes, well, why don't we call it We Are Not Alone? I was like, yes, that I will do. That I will go with.
And it should. And people bought it. I mean, they really, it really pulls to you, you know. And
well,
the title is everything.
Challenge. It was a challenge because that early book has been pulled, mainly because there's a lot of walkthrough with visuals in it. Like, if you're in 2017 and you don't know how to sign up for a Facebook account, okay, come on. You know, but back when I wrote the book, most writers wouldn't refuse to use email. So, I mean, you mentioned Facebook, and they were throwing holy water at you.
How dare you be public? How dare you?
Yeah. Oh, man, social media was the devil. I mean, it was an uphill climb. And so there was a lot of walkthrough in that book, which obviously wasn't eventually necessary. I came out with Are You There blog, It's Me Writer, because I've been blogging, people were responding to it. I'm like, well, it's good content.
Right.
You know, let's put together some of the best of the Wanna Wednesdays, which back then I had a schedule.
How do you plan your blogging generally? Because I know you are a blogger. Did you blog first, then write the book? Or you write the book and then you felt more comfortable blogging your own? How did that work?
No. I started blogging before I was ever published in anything.
No.
Because, frankly, I was just an undisciplined ass. I mean, I just did stuff when I felt like it. Like I was waiting for the motivation fairy. And I really didn't understand self-discipline. And since I'm trying to say this in a way that I don't sound like a jerk, but, you know, I always was that kid that didn't have to study and still made an A on the test, you know?
Yeah,
so I've kind of been blessed. And that's a blessing and a curse. Like, it's cool to be smart, but at the same time, it can make you really lazy. And the problem with being successful for this type of business is a lot of it's going to boil down to your character and your work ethic. Mm-hmm. And it took a while for me to understand that. And so literally I started blogging because I knew that I was an undisciplined jerk. And I knew nobody cared what I had to say, but it forced me to sit down, get my butt in the seat, write something and publish it. You know, writers write, and to expose it for criticism. And you asked if I had a schedule. For the first year and a half that I blogged once a week. And my greatest fans were the penis enhancement bots and youngcollegegirls.com.
And you're versatile.
I know. I mean, they left such a, and it was so heartbreaking to have to delete their comments. Or like I said, lick your blog is best implementation ever. I'm like, oh, I have to delete you, and I'm going to have no comments on my blog.
Why?
My brother will sign up for your site. He will. So I blogged for a year and a half, and I think in a year and a half, I probably was getting about 45 visits a day, and most of them were probably bots. And so then one day I was just like, you know, I was reading all kinds of other blogs, and one day I was just like, oh, screw it. Nobody cares. Anyway, I mean, I'm just doing this for self-discipline. And so I divorced myself from this because we were transitioning a lot as a culture. Mm-hmm. You know, in your pre-digital age, everything was very formal, you know, and the posts really sounded like an article, and you had to sound professional. And so that's how I was writing. I was writing in a very 90s style. And so one day I'm like, you know, nobody's reading it anyway. Who cares? So I used my own voice, and I think it was probably some rant about Star Trek. And I went viral.
You're like, oops.
And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, and so then, you know, I just used myself a lot as a guinea pig. And then, you know, I experimented with blogging 3 days a week. And then I experimented with blogging 5 days a week. And then, you know, and just throwing a lot of things against the wall to see what worked and what resonated with people. Because frankly, we were in a brand new age of media that nobody knew the rules. And a lot of the experts that were teaching the rules, deep down, my gut was saying that stuff's outdated. That's not going to work these days.
You're right. Exactly.
You're talking Web 1.0. We're in Web 2.0. Very, very different. And
it moves fast. Technology moves fast. And you got to, you know, keep up with it.
It isn't even the technology, and that's where I go into in Rise of the Machines. It has to do with people and the level of communication. Because I think even after my second book, I would have literary agents who were telling writers if they had a blog, they're like, oh, no, you can't blog about your garden because then people will think you have a gardening blog. And I'm like, what kind of friggin' morons are you blogging to? I don't know about you, but my audience isn't stupid people, and my audience actually gets that I can talk about different things and it not fracture their reality.
Right.
You know, it's like, of course our author can talk about other things. You know, I mean, if all you blog about is books, that's a snooze fest.
I can tell your personality is definitely worth reading these books because how you think. And then now when they're reading it, they're going to hear your voice and go, yep, I can hear her. Yep.
Yeah, it's so funny because people read my blog and then they'll read my books and they're like, oh my God, you're exactly the same. Or they meet me in person, they're like, and I'm like, yeah, pretty much. You know, a lot of my theories were very unpopular, but I was right. And a lot of the critics and the naysayers and the witch burners in my comments were a lot of agents and editors and old paradigm people. Back in 2010 or 11, I was like, look, within 5 years, if you don't have a social media platform, you might as well hang it up.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I said, if you will not be able to query an agency without part of that query being, what is your brand and what have you done for your platform? And if you don't have one, good book, but come back when you have a platform. And I got, no. I said, okay, well, you have the right to be wrong. We'll see in a few years. Talk to you in 2016.
And that's just somebody who has a hard time asking for help or trying to acknowledge the fact that they are having problems. And that's why I think these books that you're writing is ideal, because sometimes asking verbally or facing it, they can at least grapple their fears reading a book, you know?
Well, yes and no. They're twofold. One, the pushback that I got is you have to understand publishing had not changed in over 100 years. It hadn't changed since the biggest traffic snarl in New York City involved a horse carriage with a fishmonger, okay? So it hadn't changed. And humans don't like change. They like things the way that they are. These things are very predictable. Publishing was slow. You did the same thing. You wrote the book, you queried, you got rejected. You fixed the book a little better, you queried again. Eventually you got a book deal. It was very, very simple. I am not diminishing what these people were feeling, because trust me, I knew it was going to be a terrifying world. But that's part of why I kind of inserted myself into it, because I was like, if there's not some kind of voice of reason in this madness, writers, they're going to get taken advantage of. Because what I was seeing, and part of why I deviated from writing fiction to social media, and I'm not saying they were being predatory, it's just what they know, is at conferences I'm seeing, IT people and marketing, advertising people presenting social media, and as a former salesperson, I'm looking at it going, nobody's going to buy their book. They're going to block them and get a restraining order.
Right.
I was like, and not only that, when the hell are they going to have time to write any books? And so what they would do is they would make social media so complicated that writers believed that they needed to hire someone to do it for them, that they couldn't do this stuff themselves. And I'm like, well, not only do you not need to hire someone for this, but you can easily do this yourself. Now, this is not rocket science. And they're making it much harder than it honestly is, because they're teaching marketing and advertising the way that it was in the 90s. This ain't the 90s.
They want it to be a challenge, so it's harder to get into, right? In that sense?
Well, I mean, the publishers obviously, well, yes and no. I mean, I can honestly say that as a writer, the ability to self-publish or even go through a small indie press, it's wonderful because I could get my books out there. At the same time, though, 15 years ago, just to be able to say I'm a published author alone was a really big deal, even if you only sold 10 books. But now that everybody's published, really doesn't mean what it used to. Yeah. And so I can understand why there was pushback. I mean, I felt it too. But the sense I'm looking at the writers going, New York's not going to do this for you, but they're going to require it of you. They don't believe they are yet, because they're a little slow on the uptake. But eventually they're going to need you to have that platform, because these brick and mortar stores are going to start disappearing, and more shopping is going online. And if you're not online, you're invisible. In sales, we've got a saying, fish where the fish are. Mm-hmm. Well, the fish are schooling on social media. That's where your readers are.
It's easier than going and traveling sometimes, and I understand where you're stating is. Is that where you go to the rise of the machines of the digital world?
Well, what I did was, first I came out with the Writer's Guide to Social Media. Mm-hmm. Then I had been blogging consistently 3 days a week, and Wednesday I always did a social media post. So instead of coming out with an official social media book, we put together the best of those Wednesday posts into Are You There Blog? It's Me Writer. Because there are a lot of people who do save my blogs, and this saves them from having to print them out and tape them up or go through archives. And it sold really well because people have been asking I'd like to have this in a reference that I can highlight, I can take notes. And then I set about writing Rise of the Machines, which I wrote deliberately to be the definitive guide of social media, that it would never ever change. Because what I teach in Rise of the Machines is about people. The technology might change. People don't change.
Right.
If you understand people, you have everything you need to know about social media. So there's a lot of exploration about the history of communication, the change in the architecture of the human brain. There's a ton of neuroscience in the books. Why don't ads work? Why don't pop ads work? Why is that stuff invisible? How do you make it visible? And if you don't understand how the modern human brain has changed to accommodate this massive influx of information and you're using outdated tools, you might as well throw money in a pile and set it on fire.
It is amazing to think your mind, Kristen. I'm sitting here going, wow. How many books, how long did it make you to study all this information and like prepare it so beautifully and articulately and say, here, eat. I feel very nourished, you know. I was just like, feed me more. I was very proud of Rise of the Machines, and I read a crap ton of books for that one. I even read the Gutenberg Galaxy, which, trust me, is no piece of cake. I should get like a XP points or a badge somewhere just for reading the Gutenberg Galaxy. Yeah. Well, I'll make sure to send you a badge because I'm impressed. You know, it's intellectualism like that is sometimes so lost. To hear it, like I said, is the way you said it was so fluent. I'm just like, wow, she knows. And what I tried to do with all of the books is capitalize on the fact that, one, I'm funny, so I can make it relatable. Yes,
and I was never afraid to talk about my own mistakes. Like when I introduced in Rise of the Machines, you know, I poke a lot of fun at my first novel. I was like, you know, I thought my first novel was brilliant, you know, but actually it was being used in Guantanamo Bay to break terrorists until it was banned under the Hague Convention as torture. Waterboard me, please.
They're in the trenches throwing the book. Here you go.
Yeah. I was too stupid to know I was stupid. I said, I wrote the book. I kid you not, I had 179,000 words and thought, I guess that's long enough. I'm ready to query. I mean, I was that dumb.
But if you look at the reviews, they were really, a lot of people liked it. So it's so funny.
No. I'm talking about my first novel. So I took fun in my first novel. No, anything published is well done. I'm talking about when I wanted to become a writer, you know, and I wrote my novel and I thought I was ready to go. Oh, baby, no. You know all those urban legends that the agents talk about, they're talking about me.
It's all about Kristen.
Oh man, I'm like, yeah, it's like I said, and so when I'm talking about the changes in publishing, I'm like, you know, I know it's a big change. I said, trust me, I'm grateful that I came into publishing when I did, because if I would have come 6 years later, I might very well have thought that New York was an idiot and published my 178,000 women's fiction, historical, romantic, comedic, thriller, inspirational. You know, it wasn't just one genre, it was all genres. You know, I was too stupid to know I was stupid. It's a gatekeeper serve a purpose. I was like, so before we start bashing legacy, you know, it has some upsides. So I poke a lot of fun at myself, and I make a lot of jokes, and that it's okay to fail, it's okay to try things, and that they don't work. I think a lot of writers are so terrified they're going to fail. And I'm like, well, if you're not failing, you're not doing anything interesting.
Wow. Yeah. Which, you know, I'm listening to you in your details about many things. And I was reading up on your latest, The Devil's Dance. Mm-hmm. And it's a mystery and a thriller. So the way you are right now with everything that you've accomplished, the help books, it really makes me understand your function with the fiction, this mystery book. I mean, can you tell me, do you feel that thought process bleeds into this book because you're so detail-orientated that you tackle this? Because most people go into fantasy or, you know, fiction and fairies, but you're taking in a world of, you know, FBI. That's amazing.
Well, I watch way more Discovery ID than is healthy. A little bit about my background, in which, you know, I was a flake, and becoming a writer works for being a flake. When I started off in college, I was actually under a United States Air Force scholarship to become a doctor. And I actually wanted to be a medical examiner. And for 3 years, I was a neuroscience major, which is why there's a lot of neuroscience in this book. And so I've always been really fascinated with forensics and murder and, dead bodies. I've tried romance, but, the body count's got to be there. And like I said, when I started, I wanted to be a novelist. I just really sucked at it. But because I changed majors, I got a degree in international relations with emphasis in political economy of the Middle East. So I had to write a lot of papers, a lot of research papers. So I was strong in nonfiction. And so while I sucked at writing fiction, I was actually really strong in, presenting an argument and a thesis. And so that's, and then I saw what was the stuff in social media not being taught properly or what I thought was proper. So, the nonfiction gave me the discipline and my start and opened a lot of doors. And I had a friend, though, that she said, you need to really be working on your fiction, because that's when I started out. And I said, we are at the greatest transitional stage of human communication since the Gutenberg press. And it's going to be a very brief time. It's going to be 4, 5, 6 years, maybe. I said, and then it's going to be mainstream, and people like me will no longer be necessary. And the world will want a mystery thriller in 5 years. But I am here, for such a time as this. So I'm going to focus on the social media. So, now that things have kind of gone more mainstream and Rise of the Machines really, I'm going to go do a 2.0 version, but there's literally so little, in my opinion, that needs to be updated because, again, it did not focus on technology. It focused on people. Right. And the psychology of people and the psychology of being likable and how do you make people care and how do you turn people off and, what appeals to people, how do you network. And so it's all, it'll work on Instagram, it'll work on Snapchat, it'll work on whatever hasn't been invented yet because people are who are using the technology. I mean, 500 years ago, if every time somebody saw you, you did nothing but bitch and moan and complain, they didn't want to be around you. Right. Guess what? If you're on Facebook and all you do is rant and create drama, they unfriend you, and they certainly don't want to buy your book. It's not rocket science.
Unless you're posting about food, then you're success.
Yeah, but food universally has always bonded people. Food bonded people in prehistoric times. Right. Y'all are making this way too complicated. But anyway, so, Rise of the Machines I thought was definitive, so that's when I was like, okay, now is the time to go back and sit and push the fiction. And so Devil's Dance is the first salvo. It was, I wanted to create something. I'd love to say that, I wanted to write, I still do, I guess. I mean, I'd love to be a Neil Gaiman and write the next American Gods, but I felt that when I kept trying to write a novel, I kept overcomplicating it. And so when I sat down with Devil's Dance, I said, I'm not going to write this book to be any great Pulitzer winner. This is a book that you're going to pick up when you're headed to the beach or you're going on a flight or you're stuck in a doctor's office and then you won't be able to put it down. It's something that's just for fun, that it's going to hook you for 12 hours and it's going to entertain you, It's not life-altering. Right. It's entertaining.
Right. But the fact is that you utilize the FBI and then a special agent. I mean, where did you begin to even prepare for that? For me, it would just seem so overwhelming to tap into the governmental name without, because you know how people are. Some people are very, well, that's not how it really is. You're using the wrong terms.
I'll probably get some of that. I was really blessed that I've got a friend who's was in one of my writing groups. He was a former Secret Service agent, and he worked for the FBI. One of the guys that helped me with this book. Yeah, but you can find these people on Twitter and Facebook. People come to me all the time. They're like, how do you know the details for this? Here, let me hook you up with a friend. I use Twitter, When I wanted to understand about PIs, I would tweet, hey, I'm trying to write a private investigator, and these are the parameters, and I'd like to get the story right. You'd be shocked how many people are helpful. Use the hive mind. I used a friend of mine, he became a friend. I just started cold calling their sales there. Private investigation agencies. When I first had the idea for the story, because it was very different, I was trying to figure out what story I wanted to tell. Probably drove him crazy. Anyway, because I changed my mind like 3 times. And but he used to be former ATF. I could ask questions, and my answer to the people that are going to troll about details, and I'm like, it's fiction. Unless you're getting something. Well, unless you're just getting something ridiculously wrong, one, it's going to be hard to know the ins and outs all the time, especially in current times, because they may not be as open with those details as they were before, say, 9/11. Secondly, it's fiction. That was always my joke about the Da Vinci Code, is people were all up in arms about this, and I'm like, it's fiction.
I think it's hard for people to pull that separation. They want to use that as a pedestal for their knowledge, and so things.
Well, you're always going to get those people, and it's I think, you get different kinds. You get people that are nice about it, and then you go, oh, okay, well, now that we can just pull books, maybe I could correct the detail. Or, well, thank you for pointing that out. I tried my best to find out. I kind of filled that in. I'm writing more books. Would you mind, helping me with some of the details to make sure I do get them right? You win them over. But there's also the kind of person that's online that there's nothing you're going to do this. They're just looking for an opportunity to be mean. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I love writers to start blogging, is because we've got to start firing that rhino skin. Because if the second that somebody doesn't like what you have to write, you fall apart. You're not going to last. And please remind me of this when I get my first 1-star, which will happen, I'm sure. And I often, I'll go to my favorite books, the ones that I just think there's absolutely nothing wrong with this. This is perfection. And I'll go look at their 1- and 2-star reviews and remind myself that even my heroes get these people. Sorry.
They do. They really do.
And there's some people that they just want to be mean. And we cannot write a book that pleases everyone. It's impossible.
It is impossible. It really is. If you don't like it, don't read it. Yeah. I guess not everybody saw Bambi, where, if you can't say something nice, don't say it at all.
Right.
Sorry, you didn't watch that movie. You're shamed. I'm sorry.
Well, unfortunately, that is an unfortunate consequence of our modern times, is people can hide behind avatars. They can hide behind fake names. I was having my own little mini rant about Goodreads, because I feel that they have, that they profit off of authors, but they have done very little to take care of us in terms of us being abused. And, we had just had Devil's Dance loaded like 2 days, and I had a 1-star, and it's just somebody with no picture, some weird moniker name, no profile, clicking a 1-star. And when you go look at their profile, they've got 15 reviews, and all of them are 1 and 2 stars, and they're just clicking stars. And I feel that there should be, some kind of way that those types of people are either booted from Goodreads, or there is a way, like on Amazon, if, say, someone writes a trollish review, you can get people to go hit, this is unhelpful. And it will adjust the algorithm to where that 1-star does not have as much impact. Whereas Goodreads has no such fail-safe. So that doesn't take away the ability of the person to give a 1-star if they feel it's merited. But if they're just kind of being a troll, it takes away that power. I had somebody, I think, for Rise of the Machines, I think it was 1 star, you know, and she gives Rise of the Machines 1 star, and she's like, I really enjoyed the book. I thought the concepts were really great, but I didn't agree with blah, 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 1 star. I'm like, what?
Like, I saw an author who had over 1,000 comments of how good the book is, and then there was this one and said, well, there was a lot of grammatical mistakes, it was a good book, but I didn't understand it. Wait, how can you have a good book and not understand it? I don't grapple that. So it's really interesting how people think like that. You know, and
the thing was is if you clicked on the gal that gave me the 1 or 2 stars or whatever it was, you know, she had a habit of doing that. And in fact, I think there was somebody that had written an entire series that she'd given like 1 or 2 stars. And I'm like, well, if book 1 is 1 star, why the hell are you reading the whole series? Are you stupid? Oh, yeah, this tastes like crap. Let me eat some more. You know, like, you know.
You're like, okay, that's fine. From this perspective, is that why you created the WANA movement? To help?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted it where, you know, writers didn't have to be alone. I mean, it's the internet's evolved a lot more. I don't know if WANA is as important or as irrelevant as it was when it was first created, because I don't think a lot of people really knew how to use the internet, you know. They didn't know how to group together. They didn't know how to find their tribes. And WANA was really the first place that was giving people, you know, a tribe and showing you how to work together and how to become friends. And, you know, these people 6 years later are still good friends. You know, they're traveling, you know, from Australia to the United States to meet with other WANAs, or traveling to Europe and all over the world, and it's wonderful. But I think that we're past the baby stages of social media, and I think people are kind of figuring it out. So I feel WANA has just now become one of the many communities, even though it may very well have been one of the first.
That makes sense. From this travels, are you planning on making more nonfiction books? Are you on a new project? Can you tell us that? Well, I have, I'm in a box set that's coming out in June. It's called Billionaire Bachelors. Oh, wow.
And it's romance. And I don't normally write romance, but my writing partner. And she was like, I got the offer, and I sent it to Kate, and I'm like, me? Romance? Seriously? She's like, you know, you can do it. Stretch your bounds. I'm like, all right. So I wrote back, I was like, can we read a body count? Yes, there can. So she's like, you know, as long as there's a romantic interest and happily ever after, it can be, yeah, you can kill people. I created
You're like, yay!
So I wrote the novella Deadline.
I can't wait to read this. I can't wait. And thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and it's set in the same town as The Devil's Dance, Bisbee, Texas. It's, you know, my protagonist, she's a female construction worker. She's running her father's company because he's had a heart attack. And the billionaire bachelor, he's Atticus Black, and he's a billionaire from Europe, from England, and he was a star bad boy on a reality television show called Bosses from Hell. So he was like the Gordon Ramsay of companies. Like, he comes into your company, tells you you're an idiot, and throws things. So he's basically her employer. And a body shows up on the site, and he's the prime suspect.
Please promise me there's not a body with some woman wrapping her arms around him with a chest. It seems every love novel has the same cover. Like, if you
I have no control over the cover.
There's a man naked, chest barren, and there's always a woman like rubbing him up, or vice versa. And if you type in, just like, oh my God, really?
It sells, you know, but mine's more suspense than romance. There's a romantic element. I mean, even with The Devil's Dance, you know, a big appealing factor for The Devil's Dance is the unexpected romance between Sawyer and Romy. So I always like a love thread, but I don't know if I quite have the skill to be, a true romance author. Those ladies, that's some serious skill.
Right.
And like I said, I like mystery and body count, and I'm also working on a Western horror. So, I've got I'll probably have, if I stick to plan, quite a few books coming out. We're doing another Are You There blog with Me Writer 2, because I've written almost 1,200 blog posts, and the world has changed. So again, we're taking some of those best posts and putting them together into a book where, it's where people can buy it in paper and they can highlight it and dog-ear it and reference it instead of having to try to find it, looking through my archives. And there'll be content in there that isn't online like the other one. I'll probably do a 2.0 for Rise of the Machines, just because weirdly people feel it needs to be updated, even though there's really not a lot to update. I'm like, it's not that they see the publishing date and go, oh, it must not be relevant. But I can probably go in and add things like Instagram, The thing is the stuff I teach and that it works on any platform. But so those are the two nonfiction. My publisher's dying for me to come out with craft books, so I'll probably do some of those.
So I
write like 5,000 words a day, so I'm very prolific.
Yes, I can understand that. And the way you speak, I can only imagine the speed your fingers are going. You have to be typing like 100 words a minute.
If they can keep up with my brain, oh my gosh. You have no idea how hard it is for me to speak this slowly. I'm actually from Texas, but my mother is from New York, and so when I go out to New York for conferences,
there's the accent. I was wondering.
That's when it's like, I don't have to slow down, so it's nice.
So where can fans go and find you? Are you primary on Facebook, or is it usually your webpage?
Well, I prefer they find me on my blog. That's where we have a lot of fun in my comments. But, yeah, I'm on Facebook probably more than I should be.
Well, people like to have their favorite person near them, so that's a good thing. But I am so honored to meet you, and I am so grateful that you were able to talk to the Subject Press and give us a ferocity of your mind and your book. So I hope people who are listening to this, you definitely find Kristen Lamb and you cling to her and be like, more, Mama, more. I feel like I came into your home and I feel I had a great coffee date with you, and that's just the kind of person you want to really know that you're taken care of. Just like you said, you want to help, and it really bleeds over into that. It's great. So
I appreciate it. And the social media books, it's really just, I tell writers all the time, I say, how many of you are writing about dragons until your dream job in high pressure sales comes through? Nobody. I'm like, my job is not to fundamentally change your personality. My job is to show you that the same creativity and imagination that you use in your books, you can use to cultivate readers online. You don't have to change who you are. And so don't let it intimidate you. It's actually an introvert's dream. Trust me, I'm an introvert. I'm very funny. I'm a great presenter, but then when I get home, I need to slip into something more comfortable, like a coma. I like social media because it paces me. I don't lose so much energy, and I have the delete function. So if I say something stupid, I can backspace. I am not the jackass whisperer. Backspace. And I hope they enjoy the fiction. Like I said, it's just meant to be a fun read.
It's definitely
romance, FBI, drug cartels, all that jazz.
She's got the mixture, folks.